This is the installation of the sight glass with new seals on an Olympia Cremina. The machine has been totally stripped down. I'm proceeding to rebuild it from the bottom up. I've got the boiler gasket on. This task pretty much has to be done without the front panel. In a complete rebuild, it's quite simple because obviously we're stripped to the bare frame, but if you're only going to do this task, you do need to remove the front panel so you have room to tighten up the two nuts that hold the seal in place. I have my new seals, of which I just insert into the sockets. I make sure they're all the way down at the bottom and into the top. So you usually do this from below, trying to stay out of the way so you can see what I'm doing here. On the machines after about 1980, there's a small brass tightening seal, or shim. Actually, it just acts as a bearing between the brass and the rubber. I like to get this top one started, so we just balance it up there. Actually, it's a little bit easier if you turn it upside down and get that one started. So we just put our little brass shim in place, and this top seal, we'll go ahead and try to just catch one thread. We don't want to compress the seal, but we do want that nut to be a little easier to use for it, and plus it has to hold the brass shim in place. There, we want it in but loose. Let me go back over. There's our bottom, our brass. To insert the sight glass, which has been completely cleaned, and I caution you, don't drop this in descaler even if there's some scale inside, because almost all descalers will degrade the paint on the back of this. But you just clean it manually. I've used a big pipe cleaner to get inside and to make sure it's as clean as I can get it. Removed any black debris from the old seal on the top and the bottom. This style has the maximum and the minimum designations, so we do want to keep track of that. You need some type of lubricant to work on those seals, and I have found that the best lubricant is personal lubricant sold at Walmart and major retailers near you. This all just goes on the outside of the tube, so it's completely water soluble, but it's no reason to feel squirrely. It's not going to get inside of your machine. And so it just nicely slides through those. Now before we get to the bottom, we introduce our bottom nut. Get a little better light here. Alright, and we center this and enter it into the seal. You can monitor your progress from the top. We align the back of the red stripe directly behind. In order to check to see if we're all the way seated down at the bottom, I just use a simple wood popsicle stick to push to make sure we're all the way at the bottom. You can monitor this once again from the top. We catch a thread there. We're finger tight. Now you always have to think I'm upside down and backwards, so I need to tighten it. That's loosening, of course. That way. Now I have a couple of special tools that I made. Aren't necessary to use, especially if you have the panel off. These are handy if you do have the panel on and want to have it tightened. And this is just a box end wrench which I've carved with a grinder, carved an opening out of. That's quite handy. And this is a little smaller that you can get in here. It's a 17 millimeter. Well, since the front's off, it's really not a big issue. You have plenty of space even if you use a crescent wrench at this point. Now, all we're doing is just feeling that seal. We don't want to crush the glass, and all we need is that seal to push against the glass. That's all the way around. I have plenty of opportunities to tighten this later, if there's a leak once I'm the heat up now. I feel good about that. And once again, I have to think which way to turn it. It's this way. Everything's clockwise, or to the right. And once again, I'm just feeling there's quite a bit of resistance. As I said, you just have the superstition that if you tighten it too much, you're going to break that glass. But I'm just kind of feeling it. It feels quite good to me. No, it's very solid. Okay, for this top piece, you want to go ahead and check your safety pressure gauge, and this comes off, 2 17mm wrenches, takes off the top cap, and you'll see there's a inside disc with a hex nut in it that I basically come in here, and you can monitor this later, but I go ahead and I count number of showing threads. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let me count again. 1 2 3 4 6 threads show. If you have a pressure gauge, this can be very accurately set at 2 bar. Would probably be a reasonable setting for safety. Springs inside. Okay, in here there's a silicone disc, and on almost all of these machines, this disc is bumpy on one side and flatter on the other side. So we'll just go ahead and look this over, and this is the smoother side. So the smoother side we want to be the seal, and it's not something that you necessarily have to do, but you just come in and check to make sure that you've got a reasonable flat surface. You're taking the machine apart, and so you might as well do everything that you need to do, so you don't have to take it apart again down the line. And this, you insert it back in here, so it's down on the seating surface, and you take your block, your hex wrench, and we'll run it back down in. I like to put the machine back like it was, and then do my adjustments later to what I feel is the proper specs. So at 1 2 3 4 5, I'll give it another half a turn. That's about how it was set up, and this can be checked later with a pressure gauge. You take your 2 17mm, tighten that top cap. Now you use your copper crush washer up above the steam cap. Now at this point, you can really feel that copper washer crush. And we tighten it down with a 17mm. Hold the frame still. Get a better grip on it. And push. You can feel it crush. Now, I like to take one more go at it. This can be tightened anywhere down the line. When you do your leak test, if you have a hiss from this point, it's very easy to get your 17mm and give it a hit, so you're nicely crushed in there. And at this point we have our sight glass, our new seals, and our safety pressure valve all maintained, installed, and ready for the next step.